It is Sunday, it's the 27th, and I should say good evening. So it's late in the day. I'm running out of time, so I need to get this recorded. And there's a brutal overhead light. I don't have the lovely afternoon lighting going on. So we're going to do like a fireside chat type thing. So this week is called The Palette of Being. It was my intention to talk about mind control. Ooh, interesting, right? I started reading a book by Jose Silva called Silva Mind Control, and that's what I thought I was going to talk about this week. I'm not going to link it because I'm going to spend more time on it later and I'm fussing and moving, but you know what? I'm fussing and moving, and that's what's going to happen. I'm going to fuss and move. So this weekend we took down our Thanksgiving decorations, put up our Christmas decorations, went hunting for our tree, cut it down, brought it back, put it up. It's on the back porch because we have 5 cats, so it can't live inside. And as I was sitting down to condense my week notes into a script, I was not feeling particularly accomplished from a publishing standpoint. Now I'll say I read some amazing things, watched some amazing talks this week, listened to and fro from work to some really important things. It was transformational. Had an incredible moment this week that I'm going to talk about sometime in the future with a little child who is ended up back in the hospital with relapsed kidney cancer. And as I was getting ready to put today together, it became evident there was so much there's so many topics of conversation. It did not condense nicely down into a single script or a storyline. But what became really apparent as I was going through my notes is one of my favorite moments from this week was a TED Talk by this gentleman named Tom Chi. And it's Everything is Connected, and here's how. I was rewatching his talk because I was looking for a reference of something I had jotted down, and I obviously hadn't spelled it right, or I was on my treadmill when I was listening to it, and I hopped off to write it down, and I thought, well, for as interesting as a concept as this was, I must not have spelled it right. So I put the talk back on, which I am going to link because that's what today is essentially about. And this is what was meant to be this week. So the reference that I was looking for was, I'm going to butcher this, it's the Laniakea supercluster. This gentleman, who's an astrophysicist, accomplished pianist, was relating, let's see, it was heart, breath, and mind in such an interesting way. But he starts by talking about these little bacteria, these cyanobacteria, and then how they create, actually that's the midpoint of it. He starts about talking about iron and how that's the center of every heme molecule in our red blood cell, and it's how we carry oxygen. Then he goes into how these bacteria create life on Earth. Then he goes into our minds and how we're connected, yet how we don't feel connected. It's structured so beautifully. It's so interesting. But one of the things that caught my mind was he shows all these galaxies, and he shows them really in fluid motion, and that's where it's called the Laniakea superstructure. And it looks like a filament or a feather. And you usually, if you've ever seen maps of the universe, which ironically look much like a neural map of our brain, fascinating, right? It's kind of like a snapshot. This is more like a fluid structure and a movement, and it's so beautiful. Laniakea means immeasurable heaven, and that's the name given to this picture. So in the TED Talk, which, like I said, I went back and watched in its entirety because I needed to everything he was saying is so fundamentally true and peaceful. So he talks about this palette of being I'm not sure if it's he coined the phrase or he got it from somewhere else, but it's a lovely concept. We have been given this gift, this amazing gift of consciousness, and it allows us to understand how we are connected, why we matter from any perspective, from the perspective of a cyanobacteria to the perspective of a supercluster. It resonated with me because he also is tying in the concept of how each and every human being matters. Not only the humans, the plants, the cyanobacteria. He talks about the moment of time that you're born and the options you have. He equates them to colors. It's such a beautifully structured talk, but it resonated with me when I watched it more at the time I watched it, just how beautifully it connected science to spirituality, no matter where you are in this continuum. But today in particular, and I think a lot of people, we feel like we're not enough. We think we're not enough. We're not doing enough. And what we're doing is not significant enough. I know that that's something I struggle with. I try to learn. And I'm like, and then I watch all these people doing all these things. And I'm like, am I doing enough? Am I making is my presence here making enough of a difference? And his perspective on this is amazing. It deserves to be watched over and over and over again. So I will be very privileged to link it. I will watch it many times. So the more that it gets out there in the universe, the better, in my opinion. And today, when I was trying to condense my week into a script, I felt like my brain was just pinging all over the place. I watched so many great videos, so many great TED Talks. I'm listening to books to and from work. I read at night. I'm practicing mind control exercises, not of your mind. It's learning to control this amazing thing that is our mind, and then trying to link it to my heart, because really that's the only way that you're going to transform your reality. And I'm like, oh. So I could not decide, which is probably evident, what to focus on or why, when the week just usually comes together. So it dawned on me when I was backing up and I was trying to find this term, this superstructure, Laniakea superstructure, that really, this was my inherent lesson this week. It was at this point that I thought, oh, stop, breathe, listen to your body. That is the hardest thing for me. I don't know about you. It is listening. I had to do that earlier this week when I was running. I'm not really running, I'm still trotting, but I'm working toward running. My body was saying, you need to slow down. You did not learn to walk overnight. You did not stop walking overnight, and you're not going to learn to run again overnight. So it's just like a child growing up. You will get there. We will all get there, but you need to slow down and you need to listen. I'm going to leave you with a quote by Helene Hadsel. And I was reading about her when I was reading about Jose Silva and a gentleman, Vishen Lakhiani, butchered that one too. I'm not going to link any of that. No links, because I'm going to talk about probably all of them much more in the future. But anyway, here's me. I'm trying to, there's going to be a hysterical story when we get to Galilee about how my brain works. But I was like, okay, where do I go after mind control? How am I going to do this? Am I going to take a class? Am I going to do this? And I for some reason, I ended up going back and watching the original hook that caught my attention. And it's kind of how I got to Jose Silva. Talk about that again much more. And I was reading a little bit about Helene Hadsel. And I came across this quote, which again is super apropos for today, but it was, and I will read it. You possess all the capabilities for self-enrichment. You need only exercise those powers. As you begin, have no concern whether you are proceeding correctly. Just begin. Beautiful. Just begin. I'm going to leave you with that this week, my little fireside chat here. And I hope you have a blessed week. Go gently in the world, and I'll see you next week.